Okay, hey everyone. I am doing quite an experimental thing. I am a big Spider-Man fan. I'm sure people that personally know me already know this, but I am going to be not necessarily ranking, but just sorting all the Spider-Man, specifically the Peter Parker iterations that I can think of and can easily comment on. Criteria, the criteria for this is pretty simple. Um, as long as I know this particular Spider-Man, or at least I think I know them well enough to comment on it, I've included them here. So things like Spider-Man Unlimited or any anything I don't know about, I probably won't include. Also, any adaptations that are derivative of others, that say video game adaptations that are derived uh, from movies, or any spin-offs that are sort of tied into main continuity, or anything that is specifically not given its own universe designation, I didn't really include here. So let's get on with it. So I guess first we have the animated series Spider-Man. He is first and foremost very much like his 616 counterpart. He is a scientist first, um, and that's sort of his default personality. Like all versions of Peter Parker, this one follows this sort of 616 formula, and he would fit, in my opinion, either in Gryffindor or Ravenclaw. Due to him being a lot more like 616, I'm probably going to put him in Ravenclaw. Arguments could be made for Gryffindor, but I think his wit, his wisdom, his intelligence typically shines through in this house. So next we have PS4 Spider-Man. I have a very similar opinion of this one. Um, really great adaptation of the character, and I would say he's really focused on his career, which could be a sign of Slytherin, and he is cunning, but his personality certainly doesn't fit. He is incredibly kind. He is incredibly loyal, so that is sort of a Hufflepuff thing. But I'm leaning towards more Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, very similar to his other version, only because similar to the animated series or 616 Peter, he was a scientist first, superhero second. Now he prioritizes his superheroing, that's fine, but with regards to his personality, he's probably more of a Ravenclaw. Next we have Amazing Spider-Man, the Andrew Garfield one. This one I'm torn between two. Not really a Ravenclaw. I'm going to say either a Gryffindor or a Slytherin. Uh, Personally, it depends. I think he's more of a Gryffindor in the second movie, but in the first movie, he could be argued he's more of a Slytherin. Uh, that said, I'm leaning just slightly more towards Gryffindor, but an argument could be made for both. I mean, obviously, these are Marvel characters. They're incredibly well-rounded. They're not going to fit specifically into just one house. But if I had to choose, I usually think of their most defining traits besides, the crippling guilt and depression. So, yeah, okay. This is pure Spider-Man. 616, main continuity. This is Spider-Man. He's either a Gryffindor or Ravenclaw. I'm going to go ahead and say he's going to be a Ravenclaw. Um, Next, we have 1967 Spider-Man. Yeah, he's a fucking weak cake. I have no idea. Watched the show, the full run, only about once, and he's a fucking meme. I don't know. He could probably populate Hufflepuff or Slytherin, but I'm just gonna leave him here for now. Next, we have the annoying douchebag that is Web of Shadows Spider-Man. Oh my god, the voice acting in that game is so bad, at least for Peter. And ugh, this Spider-Man sucks. Anyway, um, this Spider-Man is supposed to be derived from main continuity, but it breaks a lot of continuity with regard to how the symbiotes work. So I'm the reason I gave it its own designation. Um, he is very whiny. He doesn't really get to show his intellect or wisdom. Very impulsive. So I'm not gonna say Ravenclaw. Hufflepuff maybe. Slytherin maybe. Under the influence of the black suit. In that game, it actually does influence his personality. So, uh, black suit wise, I'd say Slytherin easily. But I think pure red, I'm probably going to say either Gryffindor or Hufflepuff. And I think I'm gonna lead just slightly more towards Gryffindor. Okay, next we have Peter B. Parker. Okay, that's an easy Gryffindor. Um, I I don't see anyone sort of disagreeing with that. Uh, but as for an explanation, he is pretty well rounded. We don't get to see much of his intellectual side, um, but we know he's developed web shooters. But I mean that's pretty standard Spider-Man stuff. Um, but at least in the movie, we don't see much of a focus on it. It's very much just him being a mentor and being sort of that other side of classic Spider-Man. So with regards to what we've seen, I would say Gryffindor mostly. Um, next we have the Ultimate Spider-Man, not to be confused with Universe 1610 Ultimate Spider-Man, but the cartoon Ultimate Spider-Man, the shitty version of this. He is probably a Hufflepuff. His personality is pretty damn whimsical, to say the least. He's very cartoonish. But he is, while a dick at times, it's pretty unintentional. He's fairly loyal, fairly kind when he wants to be, but there's not much to be said about him. Uh, I'm probably going to put him in Hufflepuff, but an argument could be made for Gryffindor. With regards to how he handles himself, he's a little more Hufflepuff in my opinion. Next we have Amazing Friends Spider-Man. I do not know where to put him. I'm not going to say Ravenclaw. Slytherin, no. It's another Gryffindor Hufflepuff situation. I probably shouldn't have included this one. I don't think I can comment on it. I left this one here for the meme, but this one I legitimately shouldn't have picked. Kind of regret it now, but personally, from what I remember of the show, how he carried himself, I'm probably gonna lean just a little more towards Hufflepuff. Um, this is another thing where the show was not derived from 616, but was more just sort of a spin-off of itself. And also, I mean, it has its own universe designation, so it's not 616. That's the only reason I included it here. It's different. Whew. Next we have Tenace Spider-Man. Really, really underrated show. Only lasted one season. Getting ahead of myself though. He is a slightly more cruel, more violent Spider-Man. I think in the show, didn't he commit murder? Like intentionally? I'm pretty sure he did. Or at least tried to. Yeah, he is a darker Spider-Man, which I guess is in tone for the show. It captures some important aspects of him. Still captures his guilt, his depression, his struggle, and his intelligence very well. I mean, he could easily go between Ravenclaw and Slytherin. I was stuck between Ravenclaw and Slytherin, but I think for sake of both representation of Slytherin and the way the show sort of handled his development as a character, I think he leaned in towards Slytherin towards the end of the show. So I'm probably going to go Slytherin. Okay, next we have the true Ultimate Spider-Man, the 1610. He is an easy cutthroat Slytherin. He is a dick, to say the least. He's ambitious, he is cunning, but um, he's not as intellectually as he's not an intellectually fuck. He's not as intellectually inclined as his main continuity counterpart, or even these to be concerned. He still has a interest in science, but it's more passive. Um, and he really didn't focus on his grades. He really sort of wanted to focus on his superheroing, which is fine, but he completely abandoned school. Um, he is still very ambitious when it comes to his superhero life. He had large plans for the future, so I want to put him in Slytherin. Okay, MCU Spidey. I think anyone who knows me will easily know where I'm going to put him. But I think anyone who knows MCU Spider-Man, or when they think of Spider-Man only know MCU Spider-Man, they'll probably put him in Hufflepuff. I'm going to go ahead and put him ahead here. He is pretty much the definitive Hufflepuff Spider-Man. He is very whimsical, smart, but not as intellectually inclined, say, as his Ravenclaw counterparts. He is very childlike, not necessarily uh, in his how do I phrase it? In his demeanor, or well, he is, but it's more of a naive kind of demeanor. I personally, I'd say there's a difference between childish demeanor, where you're having fun and enjoying yourself, versus complete naivety, where that's you sort of are completely blind to what's going on around the world. And this Spider-Man definitely has a lot of innocence to him, both Peter Parker and Spidey. So I'm gonna say Hufflepuff. Okay, next we have the one that died and didn't come back. We didn't see much of him, but from what we have seen, he's quite the egotistical bastard. So we're gonna put him here, Gryffindor. Next we have Tobey Maguire. He is most likely going to be a either Gryffindor or Hufflepuff. Personally, I like to put him in Gryffindor, but at the same time, he does have some Hufflepuff qualities. I'm stuck between both. I could go either way, but because I get such different vibes from this version of Spider-Man versus MCU Spider-Man, and I know for sure he's a Hufflepuff through and through, I'm probably going to put him in Gryffindor, just because they're so diametrically opposed. Okay, and lastly, we have Spectacular Spider-Man. He is either a Gryffindor or a Ravenclaw. Incredibly witty. Josh Keaton's voice acting captured that incredibly well. Wise beyond his years, I'd say. And he is fairly intellectually inclined. He's maybe not as learned as, say, his main continuity counterpart, his PS4 counterpart, or even the animated series counterpart, but I do think there is enough there to justify it. But he's also very brave, very cunning, and is pretty courageous. So I'm stuck between these two. I'm probably gonna put him in Ravenclaw, but it could go either way. So with that said, I think that is it. Before I end the video, I would like to see if there's anything I'd want to change. I'm gonna keep the Ravenclaws, and I'm probably going to keep the Gryffindors. So the Slytherins are definite. I'm gonna lock it in. All right. Thank you for watching. If you didn't like it, well, that sucks. Okay.